Okay, I just want to greet everyone. Looks like we do have some viewers in the room. We're just getting started, giving a few minutes for others to join. So thank you. I can see that we've got at least half a dozen of you joined already across the North Carolina, and we look forward to chatting soon. So we'll get started. We appreciate everyone making time in this busy end of school part of the year. Emily, are you able to just say something to the group as well? Part of the year. Emily, are you able to just say something to the group as well? Part of the year. Emily, are you able to just say something to the group as well? All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm happy to share to get us launched, and then we'll go ahead and talk about next steps. So first of all, just want to say thank you again to all of you for the great work that you're doing each day in the classroom, and of course when we came together at our convening just a couple of several weeks ago. And what Emily and I would like to do today is make sure that we get clarity, provide clarity on next steps. So what we'd like to do, hopefully you're now able to see my screen. Thank you. We're just having a couple audio issues, so I think we're okay. If anyone wants to shoot a message, if there's an issue, you can do so. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it on this presentation mode so that we can see full screen and be able to do it. So anyway, we want to, as I mentioned, since we've been back together last time, you've been finishing out the school year strong, engaging in the year-end testing. I know that we reached out, Margie and Myra from DigiLEARN, who again we can always thank for the opportunity for us to be together, had reached out to find out about testing dates and end of school dates. And as we aggregated that information, it was very obvious that that was really the priority for this past month, as it should be. And so what we've done meanwhile is done some additional work on setting the foundation for the model that we'll do together and set up the next phase of work, which will really take place particularly over the next month. And just to quelch any fears that you may or may not have, hopefully you don't, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of time, place, path, and pace for the things that you'll contribute as a scholar. So just the second thing that we want to share is just you remember that we did the Wordle for powerful learning. And so just to give us the big picture of the work, our goal here is to impact kids across North Carolina, really across the country, and learning that is purposeful, real world, engaged, and in the context of a digital environment that's changing rapidly. So we just wanted to bring us back to the work that we had done together. And just as far as what we'll cover over the course of the next hour, and again, we'll just frame this. We might recall that at Getting Smart, we have the design process, frame, ideate, create, execute, the various pieces of that. So what we'll do is we'll frame the work, and then either Emily or I will share the specific next steps. And then we'll get to create this model together that'll change what we do. This, just so you know, for today's purposes, particularly because of the busy end of year schedules, we wanted to use a format that would allow us to record the session. So Google, and a nuance that some of you may know in your role as digital scholars, and being probably some of the go-to people in your buildings for how to use various tools and technology, one of the pieces is that the Google Hangouts on Air is allowed to, we can record this for those of your colleagues who weren't able to make it today. And some, we even learned that their school district blocked access to it. So what we're doing today is Google Hangouts on Air. It really only allows for sharing and questions through a messaging process. We're making some assumptions that many of you have used this tool before, and at the same time, we know it may be new to some of you. So just dive in, ask questions, and when in doubt, you've gotten several emails from me. This is Mary, and also from Emily. So just fire an email if you have questions or something's frustrating or you don't understand. What we plan to do immediately within, well, I say immediately, within by tomorrow, what you will have is all of this in email summary of next steps and everything that you will do. So within the next, call it 12 to 20 hours, you'll have a recap of what we've done here, and you'll also have access to the video if there's anything you missed. So just a few things on the model, just as some refreshers. We know what you're probably most interested in will be, what are your steps? What are the ways you can contribute? And my point with talking about the Google Hangout on Air today, it's very didactic. We know it's one directional. We know it's sort of, here are all of our marching orders. And then in the next series of work, we're going to use Google Hangouts, not Google Hangouts on Air. And you may be pairing up with someone in your district. We may be coming together face to face. So this is really the only unidirectional transmission of information, but to make sure that we had space for everyone on the call to join, we needed to do it on Google Hangouts on Air. But in the future, you'll be able to speak as well. We certainly do not want to mute you, because the underlying principle of this is the voice of the teacher is going to be huge for a successful product. So just to remind ourselves, what we're heading towards is a model, creation of a model for the digital scholars. And throughout this process, we want to engage authentically, differentiate for the districts, balance being structured and adaptive. We've got some timeline pieces. We'll come back to that as we speak through the day. But just to give you a feel for what's to come, and just a reminder of the process. Again, this is somewhat of what we talked about in Durham, where we look at the role of DigiLEARN as a whole and the mission of DigiLEARN to narrow the achievement and skills gap by accelerating the use of technology. Again, the reason, the whole premise behind the digital scholars is the critical role of teachers as leaders, and you are the dedicated professionals, and together we're building a framework and model for support that the digital scholars will use going forward and be able to scale to impact people not just in North Carolina, but also beyond. I did get one, just a teeny bit of feedback that maybe this is a little bit too small. Hopefully you can see the screen all right. In terms of progress since the last meeting, one piece is that we've worked on really a framework and a place to park the work that we'll do. So what you're seeing right now, and I know there's a little bit of a delay in terms of when the screens switch, but what we've worked on is a digital scholar framework design. And so what the team at DigiLEARN and Melinda from Friday Institute, Emily, myself, and most importantly with the input we've gotten from you through interviews and through our time together, have developed really a design structure where there's the background, the desired outcomes, and theory of change for the model. And then the fun stuff, the part that we get to work on together, is really this lower half of the proposed framework, where we establish the goals, a roadmap to success for the scholars, and how we're going to show indicators of success. And my last, just really the last piece before we get into something new and meaty for you and what your next step will be. And meanwhile, if you have questions as we go along, please pop those in the message. Emily will be monitoring messages throughout the broadcast so that we can answer any questions that you have. Ultimately, what our goal is to personalize learning for all students and equip the dedicated professionals to do so, and in tandem, really sparking and facilitating school-wide change, system-wide change, and national change. So we do think we could change the world through this process. We are building a roadmap to success, the role of scholars, the roadmap, the specific activities and events that you can engage in as scholars and with people in your district. And how we'll know is if student learning increases, classroom evidence of changing instruction, whether we use the SAMR model or others, and just to know the progress that your district is making. All right, so this is a new graphic. Hopefully you can just take a minute to, it should pop up on your screen any moment. what we wanted to do as we get from that, we've talked a lot about the why, and you gave some great examples when we were together last month of the how. What we want to do now is really be aligned and go on the same path and the same road to equip to meet the goals of personalizing learning and equipping teachers. So what we've aimed to represent here is this multi-tiered process where there are certain things that I say we, digital scholars, you, the select, the people who've been identified as key leaders in your district, together would have some set of experiences as we look to potentially the coming school year or years that we're implementing this. Just for the sake of conversation, we'll call this a year-long plan, where the model would involve some activities that are scholar collective activities. Currently, we're designing. But as we go into the future and the scholars become an implementation process, there could be a boot camp or training, collective field trips together, piloting some strategies that you've seen in the school, virtually collaborating as we're doing today. I'll use the word collaboratively loosely since it is so didactic, but we will, just starting as soon as Tuesday, we will be doing some virtual collaboration. So there's this layer that's the training for the trainers, the leader equipping. Buttressed in the middle, that a recognition that each scholar, each teacher, each person engages in some form of asynchronous learning. We're all learning each day. You might have a formal personal learning plan, or you might have said, I want to learn more about learning management systems, or I want to learn more about how to use data. Or one of my personal learnings in the last little bit is to really go on this journey to find out what are the components of the best personal learning plans. And you might recall that these will all really go across the themes of the TLA model that we discussed. And at the same time, there's this level of individual choice in where folks are going to grow and learn. And then probably the area that people are most interested in, or maybe most curious about, or have the most experience with, are the sorts of professional learning experiences or powerful learning experiences that you will engage in at your individual school sites, whether it's with small group, large group, a grade band group, or a district group. And so there's this pattern where we're not going to prescribe, oh, you have to do 10 one-hour meetings with your whole staff, but that there's this model and some examples for what you could do as a staff to kick off and have everyone engage in a personal learning plan, or some small group learning experiences where we use the example of a group of science teachers maybe planning a lab together that uses technology in a different way. And then, obviously when we're talking about school culture, a big part of that is how do we build into the model some structure for celebration. I'm going to pause there and see if there are some questions that have arisen from the group. Emily, you can, I know you're probably answering some of those live. If there's anything else that you want to message to me from any questions folks are asking. I'm just going to pause there if anyone, taking a look at the Q&A. I don't see any questions yet. Could somebody, whether you have a question or not, I would just really appreciate it if somebody could type in a question like, can you see this? Or did you know that one of our team members has had a, okay. Well, we're not going to worry about the questions. I think that, my only concern is that I don't necessarily want you to have to keep continuing to listen to my voice. At the same time, this is the goal here, is common information, common page will follow up. So we will march forward, and you can reply to any of the emails that we've had with your questions. Yay, actually, several of you, thank you. Some of you did indicate, can we see this? Yes, I can. So thank you. That was pretty exciting because several of you did answer at the same time. So the good news is if you do now populate any questions about the work that we're doing, we'll be able to respond to that. So thank you, Kim and Melinda and others who shared that. All right, so this is probably the part that you've all been waiting for, to know a little bit more about what you get to do. We know that in the feedback that you provided, there was a desire for additional clarity in terms of what your role and next steps are. And as we mentioned, there's a method to the madness with in terms of the timing is just recognizing the and of course exams and end of the school year. And now what we've got are what we think are is a series of 3 different tasks, for lack of a better word, or processes that can be done individually, paired up, and in small groups to help build out the rest of the model. One of the slides, and as you review the PowerPoint deck, you can see that in better form, but we've talked about that you're going to design the training for collaboration, multiple coaching methods, design thinkings, other strategies and tools that folks will use. So I'm not going to read this, but I think as we talk about what does the role mean for us, one super important thing is one of timing, is we can talk about digital scholars going forward once the model is designed. But what's key right now is the role of the scholars is really to design the model. So the role this year is different and probably may feel more design oriented, and sometimes that feels more ambiguous than it will going forward. So what it means for you is that there are 3 things that we're asking each of you to contribute with your great expertise. The first 2, we're really hoping that all will join in some way, shape, or form. The third one is really more optional and really dependent on availability of who is able to engage. So the first one is for each person to articulate a successful professional development learning experience, a powerful learning experience, something that you have done or would like to do with your staff, something you have done or would like to do with a small group, even something you have done or would like to do individually. So we've got a template that we will use and ask each of you either individually or in pairs to be able to come together and create an experience. So again, there's a lot of choice here in terms of timing and pace, and the agreement with how DigiLEARN set this up is that each of you has a series of approximately up to 5 days to be able to contribute to the overall process. So obviously one was in-person convening. We're doing some events like this. We think that call it a day of work. Some of you may do that more efficiently. Some of you may want to design it and then do it. So some of you may extend this PD experience into a meaningful part of your June. But we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the template. A second piece is the focus groups, where Emily and I have designed 3 different sessions, and we'll talk about the topics, where we'll come together on a Google Hangout where you get to talk and listen. Both. We don't have to record those ones. So we'll do focus groups on certain topic areas, and those are scheduled. We have 3 different dates scheduled over the course of the next 2 weeks. Again, I'm going to get to the details on that, but just so you know, and to calm anything, that first PD experience, all on your own time when it works. Focus groups, 3 different options from which to choose. You're encouraged to attend at least 1. You're invited to attend at least all 3. And if there's not a way that you're able to do that, then we can talk about different ways that you could contribute. And then the last one is really completing the framework. And after all the work of the first 2 tasks has been completed, the goal in round 3 is for a small group to really compile and disaggregate and say, what are the best ideas from here? I'm just pausing for a moment while the next screen comes up with the overview of the successful PD experience. So we've got a sample here that we'll show, but the goal here is as we create, and it's really a top-down, bottom-up approach to the work that we're doing, and not top-down, bottom-up from a concept standpoint. Is there are these big picture of like the role of the scholar as a coach, a designer, a facilitator. Our goals are student learning, and at the same time, the bottom-up pieces, we may have some example. We want real, rich, living examples of things that you can do or have done, and that the way that that's communicated is in a common template that could be replicated across different districts and ultimately across different topic areas. So it may make more sense when we get to the template, but in short, we'll describe what a successful professional development experience will be. And the goal, like I shared, is that we want to have examples and experiences that will inform how digital scholars will design trainings or learning experiences in the future. So what your task will be is to come up with an idea, maybe invite someone to join you, whether it's a digital scholar or someone else. I think learning often happens even better in collaboration. And then to complete the template that we'll send a link to via email. You can make changes or additions, and we really do encourage you. It's sort of like do you write a lesson plan, for lack of a better word, and then do you actually deliver the lesson? It could be some hybrid of that. And our challenge here, and I think I know Myra from DigiLEARN has really challenged us all along, is we don't know what the next gen, like we get to create what the next version looks like. So what I would really challenge us all to do as we think about this is not think the traditional, okay, we're going to get the staff together and we're all going to learn how to score 5-trait writing rubric, or something that's very linear or maybe similar to what's been done in the past. So here what we're trying to do is say, what is an idea or a process or something that you've maybe tried in a non-traditional format? Some of you could do an all-staff meeting. Some of you could do a grade band process. It could be something that would be done in 1 hour, or it could be something that's done over the course of 8 weeks. So some sort of a growth process. And as you can see, where we are, the expectations are clear in terms of do it in a template. Everybody creates one. You can, but then how and what you create is really up to you. And we're super excited to filter through these, see what we get, and highlight them as examples and the kind of things that we'll share with the DigiLEARN board as the work that can be done. So one example here, I really wish you could hear from Emily. I'm sorry that we're having some sound issues where you don't get to have her voice come to life. But here's just a bit about an example. So an example of a professional learning experience would be in the topic of an iBook author. And so Emily's written out here that we had time to peruse different iBooks. There may be success stories where the facilitator or trainer plays some videos about teachers with students who have used iBook author. The trainer might highlight key features and model what that would look like. And then most importantly, I think in this kind of next gen, what does professional learning look like? There's this group creation process and individual creation process. So this is a very high level summary of what that professional learning experience could look like. And then we're popping that up on the screen. What you'll see momentarily is what that looks like in a Google Doc. So what you're now seeing on the screen, Shazam, and should be there soon. Emily's saying she's sorry you can't hear her, so that's all good. What we've got here is a template that we'll all be using, and this is something that we'll be distributing to you as well. And the overall frame is, what's the target audience? And you'll notice in this top part where we say group type, these pieces, these learning experiences that you get to design in a topic that you're interested in, a process that fits for you and challenges you to grow and stretch, could be something that you would say, ooh, I want to design an experience for the next time the digital scholars are together, because I've got something that's really going to help grow the coaches. Someone else might say, boy, we're really remote in our district and we're all doing I think it would be fun if I could challenge teachers in our district to do some individual projects this summer and then come back together. Some of the rest of you already know that you're going to be facilitating a training. I'm not telling you are, but just fictitiously, you might be on tap to facilitate some sort of a back to school training session with your staff. So you could use this process to your advantage and say, okay, I'm going to take something I already need to do or I already have an interest in, and I'm going to build it out. Some of you have a grade band where you're adopting a new curriculum or using a new learning management system or using a new process next year. So you may come up with a process for your school-based small group. So we'll want you to describe the process. We've got, kind of the the understanding by design basics in terms of what do we want people to know, understand, and be able to do. And then on page 2 of the template, we want you to get into, we kept this as an example, super high level. We would want you to get as specific as you could. Think about, okay, would one of my colleagues in a different district, would one of my other scholars be able to implement this based on what I've written down? And that's really a goal or a criteria, is could someone else implement this based on what you've written? At the same time, we're not looking for a 20-page dissertation on it either. I'm guessing most of these designed, I think we're guessing will be between somewhere and 3 to 6 pages, depending on how much detail you have. And some of them may be 2, some of them may be longer. But the point isn't that there's like one specific way to do it. It's really an open invitation to say, take some of your best, most creative thinking, put it into this, and then we're going to aggregate those together and help that. They will inform the plan. Notice that we have used some common language around the learning accelerator elements where things are dealing with data or planning or delivery. So one piece that we would ask you to do to layer on to this training is be mindful about whether you are addressing each of those categories. Earlier in the presentation slide, we had those circles, and you guys know what the TLA pieces are. So we don't want that to be cumbersome. And at the same time, part of what we'll try to do is identify what some of the key elements are that are featured. And we'll probably have a primary feature, because as we look to building both a process and even a database of some examples, we can identify them not only based on grade level or subject area, but also based on which standards we're trying to shoot toward. Emily, I felt like I just heard a little sound. I'm wondering if you're...
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, yes, success. Okay. So,
well, good. We're going to have, if anyone has ever said, don't ever do like a virtual presentation with one voice and a set of slides over an hour, Emily saves the day. She's going to jump in and expand on that. So take it away, Emily. Uh-oh, we just lost you.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So what Mary's just been describing is we want you to just share with us an effective example of a professional learning experience you've had in order to just help us pave the way for what successful trainings for digital scholars and yourselves will look like moving forward, so we can make sure in the framework that we have those key elements. We talked a little bit about this at the workshop. You all shared what effective professional learning experiences look like for you, but we just want to get that a little bit more down on paper. So that's essentially what we're asking here. And some of you may be thinking, well, I haven't had that many successful experiences. So think about what it would be then. That's okay too, if this is an experience, like Mary said, that hasn't happened yet. So if you can map that out for us, it'd be great. And what you're looking at is just a very overarching high-level example that I've created. It's in that folder that, if you haven't opened yet, is shared with you in your email, so you can refer back to it. And there's also a blank template in that folder that you can copy and you can recreate and add your experience to. I'll pause there if there's any questions about that first task. And the training, while it'd be great if you designed it around a digital focused training, if it was about a different content area, that's okay too, because again, we're looking for what are those key aspects of a really effective training or a professional learning experience. All right, so then the second task is focus groups, and this is optional, but we would love for you all to participate if you have the time. The idea of the focus groups is that we're going to dig a little bit deeper in some of the aspects of the framework. So these groups will meet in probably, I'm hoping, groups of 4 to 5, and we'll do that virtually, and they'll really be working groups. And the idea will be that we'll address some of the questions that you see there listed under purpose. As we move forward with this model, we're going to need to be thinking about these questions. How are we going to train other digital scholars? How are we going to see their progress and assess their progress? How are we going to scale this idea so that other teachers across the state and maybe other digital scholars in other states understand this framework and that it's consistent and replicable? Go ahead, Mary. If you participate in one of the focus groups, we're going to give you, not give you, you will get, half a day's worth of credit. And you can participate in all of them if you'd like, or just one of them if you only have time for one. We also are okay if you can't come to those dates and times that you see on the screen. If you want, you can contribute offline. We've made folders where we'll have documents that you can contribute to and add your ideas and see the work that the other digital scholars are doing. So you can also contribute in that way. The 3 different groups are going to be based on those questions that you saw on the slide before. So there is going to be a group about digital scholar professional learning plans. How are we going to figure out what your path looks like as a scholar, what others' paths look like as a scholar, and how you're going to get the tools, support, and training that you need, and then kind of measure where you're going and what that path looks like. The other focus group, which will meet on the 14th, will be about a digital scholar bootcamp. So you all are the inaugural group, but then when there's subsequent cohorts, what will we do with them? What will the training look like? How will we get them on board? Those types of things. We want you to really think about what that kickoff would be. And again, that will be a working group where we'll all contribute, share ideas about what that might look like. And then the third focus group will be about scaling the model. So the idea that digital scholars really have a lot of expertise to frame. Mary, can you go back one slide? That the digital scholars really have ideas that we want to spread and share, and their expertise is something that shouldn't just live in your own district. So how can we come up with a model or idea to spread that wealth? And that might mean a digital scholar pairing up with a business partner and working with a school, or it might mean a digital scholar working with another digital scholar and going to other districts. But that will be what the third focus group is about. And links to all of those Hangouts and groups were in the email that we provided this morning for you to access. And we can send reminders as well. All right, thanks, Mary. Next slide.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I think I haven't sent out the email to everyone yet with those links. So we'll be sure to do that right afterwards. So if people are wondering if they got something or not, you will certainly have that by tomorrow. All right, Emily, I don't want to lose your audio. So back to you.
Oh, you're good. And so then the third task, and this is also optional. So task 1, we're asking you all to contribute. Task 2 and task 3 are optional. But again, as many of you that want to contribute, we'd love it. The third task will be meeting face-to-face in North Carolina. And what we're going to be doing is taking all of this work from task 1, task 2, the first time we met, even some of what we learned from you today, and kind of completing the framework. We want to have as much information from you about what this should look like so that when we talk with the board and when we discuss with Myra and others, that we really feel like we have enough of your voice included in that framework. So when we meet with this small group, whoever is willing to join me, we're really going to coalesce and bring together all the things that we've been doing and make sure that your ideas and voice are reflected in that framework. So half of this day will really be digging through everything that we have, and the second half will be reviewing the overall framework and working those things into the framework. During this day session, we'll also be thinking about how we assess the progress of digital scholars over the course of a year, and how do we make sure that digital scholars are keeping on track with their own goals and their own targets. I'm really looking forward to that day, and so please email me if you're interested in joining me for this face-to-face. I'm going to try and pick a location that works best for everyone who wants to participate, and yeah, try and make sure that we get as many people as possible. So if you would, email me if you're interested in partaking, then we can figure out a date or a time, either the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th, and an ideal location.
Awesome. Emily, I'm just going to jump in there for a second. We wanted to put your face up while you were talking about that so people knew how sincere the invitation was. Like we said, that first task is really independent or in pairs. The focus groups, we really encourage you to all at least participate in one. We realize with face-to-face, this will be something that if that's the way that it really works out to be able to do it with schedules, that we'll need to pick a time and a place and know who's coming really soon. So just to emphasize that, it's not that we'd exclude you necessarily at a certain point, but at the same time, there is a little bit of a sense of urgency of folks expressing interest and being able to really put all the pieces together, so to speak, of the model and be able to do that. And we realize that might vary based on location, but just send us info, and really excited to be able to facilitate that. So, okay. Go ahead, Emily.
All right. There's a note. It says, can you clarify the date for the second Google Hangout? One PowerPoint said June 10th, and your copy said June 14th. That will be on June 14th. That's probably just Mary and I were changing dates to try and make sure we spread them out across the month. So that will be the 14th. We'll make sure to fix those both so they say the same date. Okay, so that's task 3. And we also will make sure that if you aren't able to join the second group or the focus groups for task 2 or task 3, that we'll be sharing all this work so that you can comment or share your thoughts as well, so that you have some buy-in and some say in the work that we're doing. All right, if you could go to the next slide, Mary. So then, just in some next steps, we're going to make sure that everything we went over is in an email to you following this call, and it will have links to the different respective pieces that we talked about. The next piece is to just email me if you want to participate in the small group. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it's in a really convenient place, depending on who is going to join. The third thing is to download and save task 1 from the folder that we share with you so that you can start building out that successful PD experience. If you have questions about that, feel free to email Mary or I. If you want to work with a buddy, feel free to work with a buddy on that. And then the fourth thing would be to just try and participate in one of the focus groups. It would be really great to have as many of you as possible. Mary, did you have any other next steps you wanted to add?
None other than we definitely see those of you, who figured out how to do the question function. We just immediate next steps would be to enter, as we're doing some recap here, any questions or comments that you have in the question thread. Emily and I can see those. We're happy to join them. And as we've said, a foundational principle of this is we want it to be collaborative and communicative. So please jump in. We'll watch for any of those questions. And then just to reinforce the timeline, the email should make it all clear. If there's anything about this webinar that you want to be able to watch again, we'll have that recording. Encourage you to do the face-to-face, and then really just to dive in. As you think about that task 1, that creating some powerful or effective, successful PD experience, if some of you would like help saying, I've got an idea, I'd love a partner, we're happy to help broker some communication amongst the scholars to try to pair you up. So we felt it would be a bit too contrived to put you in groups and say, do this topic. We decided to do the specific topics that we want to make sure we address through the focus group and the face-to-face, and then leave it really much more open-ended so that folks can do something that's engaging and will help you grow as individuals. So all that to say, in that individual learning experience, that individual doesn't necessarily mean alone. So if you'd like some guidance, help, partnering up, or even some feedback or questions along the process. Emily and I are super frequent users of Google Docs. Some of you know the feature, the tactical step within Google Docs, that if you have a question, you can do a little plus sign, and so you can do plus Emily@gettingsmart.com or plus Mary@gettingsmart.com right in the document. If you say, hey, we have this idea, what do you think of such and such, we're happy to jump in there. And at the same time, we totally respect your professionalism to have you not feel like there's a right way to do this.
And you also can feel free in those in the Google folder, you can look at the professional learning experiences that others are completing as for ideas, or if you like something, let them know. So you can see each other's plans as well in that folder. And I don't know if you want to pull that folder up real quick, Mary, that might be helpful to just show them.
Yep. That just might take a second to pull up.
Shared it, there it is, yeah. So I would type in shared, there it is, perfect. So here is what you'll see when you open that folder. The slideshow from today, which will have the correct dates for the focus groups and so on and so forth, and then the 3 different task folders. And this is really where we'll be doing the work when we meet for the, I guess go ahead and open task 1. So in task 1, in there you'll find the example that we shared today, the very overarching example, and then task 1 template. So you can open that template and make a copy of it and complete it yourselves. But you'll also be able to then see, since you'll make a copy of it, you'll be able to see the work of everyone else as well. And we just ask that you name it with your last name and then your first name. And that will allow us to also see that you were in there and working on it. Perfect. And so then you can, also Mary's highlighting how you can go in and comment via putting a + sign in email in case you wanted to leave a note for someone or feedback. Great. And what we'll be doing then for the subsequent tasks, we'll also be using those folders for task 1 or for task 2 and task 3. So during the virtual sessions, we'll be in there and docs together, working and brainstorming and collaborating. So that folder, that Digital Scholars folder, will be your home for the next month for all of this work.
Right, and we communicate a little bit more by email. I know we respect that your time off of it, but we'll do a prompt to each prior to each focus group. I'm sorry, I'm hearing an echo, so I'm hesitating a little bit, but we'll send a prompt prior to each focus group. It'll have a question for reflection. Again, this is where we trust your professionalism of you can do a little bit of research or thinking ahead of time, and at the same time, the design is so that you can show up to the working group and be ready to be online, be ready to be in docs, be ready to say, oh, I'm going to go find this example and drop it in there. It will be highly collaborative, fast-paced, and we hope engaging and exciting to do. So it's don't feel like you have to do a ton of prep to come to it, but do come ready to dive in and collaborate. And there may be some follow-up steps that you need to do. So
yeah, I'd agree, Mary. Just having thought about what that focus group is and put a little bit of thought into what you think about it to start, but not much more than that.
All right. If there aren't any other questions, we'd like to thank you all for joining today. I know that you've got your home stretch with your students likely, or with your colleagues in your district. So we would just encourage you to have that frame of begin thinking about what is that powerful learning experience, and you can do a couple, like if you just can't pick, and who's someone that you can engage, and even better if there's a place that you get to practice that and live it out in your districts, that's a great way to test drive what we're going to be doing. All right, thank you all. Watch for your inbox. Let us know if you have questions, and we'll look forward to hearing all the different ways that you want to be engaged. Take care.
Bye-bye.